She was young, beautiful, and wildly successful, a hairstylist to the stars, with a client list that read like a who's who of the entertainment industry. Kemyra Holloway built her empire from the ground up, turning her passion for hair into a multi-million-dollar brand. She had the kind of life most could only dream of: luxury cars, designer clothes, and a social media following that hung on to her every word. But behind the glitz and glamour was a love story unraveling into something much darker. At the center of it all was Rashawn Wilkerson, the man she once called the love of her life. To the world, he was her partner, the father of her child, the man who had stood by her side as she rose to fame. But behind closed doors, their relationship was far from perfect. Friends whispered about the late-night arguments, the sudden disappearances, the bruises that Kemyra always had an excuse for. And then, one day, everything came to a horrifying end. It happened inside the place she loved most, the salon she built with her own hands. What should have been just another busy day at Kai Luck's studio turned into a scene straight out of a nightmare. A violent confrontation, a final scream, and a discovery so gruesome that it sent shockwaves through the entire industry. What led to this horrific moment? What dark secrets had been brewing beneath the surface? And how did a man who once claimed to love her become the one to end her life? Today, we're diving deep into the chilling case of Kemyra Holloway, a story of love, betrayal, and an obsession so deadly it could not be stopped. But before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more cases that will leave you speechless. Kemyra Holloway was more than just a hairstylist, she was a brand, a movement, a force to be reckoned with. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. At just 23 years old, she had built Kai Luck's studio into one of the most exclusive salons in the city, catering to the biggest names in the industry. From reality stars to platinum-selling rappers, if you were somebody, you got your hair done by Kemyra. Her signature style set trends, her social media presence was magnetic, and her bold, unfiltered personality made her a favorite among millions. To the outside world, she had it all: success, beauty, and a future that seemed limitless. But what most people didn't see was the price she paid to have it all. Behind the designer handbags and champagne celebrations was a young mother trying to balance the weight of her empire, her child, and a toxic on-and-off relationship that was slowly pulling her under. That relationship was with Rashawn Wilkerson, better known as Ra. A 30-year-old aspiring rapper with big dreams but little to show for them, Rashawn was the kind of man who knew how to talk his way into any situation. He had charm, swagger, and just enough hustle to make you believe he was one step away from blowing up. When he and Kemyra first met, it was instant chemistry. He showered her with attention, made her feel like she was the only woman in the world, and promised her a love story straight out of a fairy tale. But love, as Kemyra would soon learn, isn't always enough. From the beginning, there were red flags. Rashawn was unpredictable. One moment, he was the doting boyfriend, spoiling her with expensive gifts and grand gestures. The next, he was disappearing for days, leaving her to wonder where he was and who he was with. There were arguments, whispers of other women, and a temper that flared when things didn't go his way. Still, she loved him. And maybe, just maybe, she thought her love could change him. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple, a young black power couple on the rise. Kemyra's fans adored her devotion to family, and Rashawn played his role well, appearing in photos and videos as the supportive partner, the protective father. But behind closed doors, the reality was far from glamorous. While Kemyra's career was skyrocketing, Rashawn was struggling to keep up. His rap career had stalled, his business ventures kept failing, and the money wasn't coming in the way he wanted. And as Kemyra's success grew, so did his resentment. Friends started to notice the shift. Rashawn wasn't just jealous of Kemyra's success, he felt like he was losing control over her. He wasn't the man she needed to depend on anymore, she was the one bringing in the money, the one people wanted to be around, the one shining in the spotlight. And that ate away at him. But Kemyra, ever the loyal woman, kept trying to make it work. She wanted her family together. She wanted the love story she had dreamed of. Even when the fights got worse, even when the accusations and threats became a regular part of their conversations, she stayed. Maybe she thought he would change. Maybe she thought things would get better. But what she didn't know was that Rashawn wasn't just angry. He wasn't just bitter. He was dangerous. And soon, that danger would explode in a way no one saw coming. Rashawn Wilkerson had always been a man who wore confidence like armor, but underneath the flashy jewelry and smooth talk was something much darker, deep insecurity, a bruised ego, and a growing resentment that was beginning to consume him. He had spent years selling a dream, making people believe he was on the verge of making it big, but the truth was, he was struggling. His music wasn't taking off, his side hustles weren't paying the bills, and the only real stability he had came from Kemyra. And that fact ate him alive. Kemyra was everything he wasn't: driven, successful, in control of her future. She didn't need to rely on handouts or empty promises. She had built something real, something that made people respect her. And Rashawn hated that. He loved her, or at least, he convinced himself he did. But love mixed with resentment is a dangerous thing, and in Rashawn's mind, Kemyra's success wasn't just a win for her, it was a loss for him. To make himself feel like the man he thought he was supposed to be, Rashawn did what came naturally: he sought control in other ways. He cheated. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. It wasn't about love, and it wasn't even about the women, it was about power. Each affair was a way for him to remind himself that he could still dominate, that he still had something Kemyra didn't. And she knew it. She knew about the lies, the sneaky text messages, the late-night disappearances. But she had spent years telling herself that he would change, that he would grow up, that maybe if she loved him hard enough, he'd finally be the man she needed him to be. And she believed he would change for their 3-year-old daughter, Sinai. Then came the final betrayal. Kemyra had tolerated Rashawn's flaws for years, but when she found out he had gotten another woman pregnant, something in her snapped. This wasn't just another side chick, this was a full-blown situation. The woman was Lakendra, a local Instagram model with a reputation for chasing rappers and flaunting designer gifts from her sponsors. And now, she was carrying Rashawn's child. The humiliation was unbearable. Kemyra had spent years being Rashawn's biggest supporter, defending him against the people who told her she could do better, standing by him even when he didn't deserve it. And this was how he repaid her. By giving another woman the one thing that should have belonged to her. By bringing a child into the world while he could barely take care of the one they already had. Kemyra didn't just get mad, she made sure the whole world knew she was done. She took to social media, where millions of people watched her every move, and posted a message that would send shockwaves through Rashawn's fragile ego. "I'm officially single. Ain't no coming back from this. Y'all can have him. I'm done being stupid." The internet erupted. Fans flooded her comments with support, while others speculated about what had finally pushed her over the edge. And Rashawn? He was watching it all unfold, feeling his power slip through his fingers. He tried to call her, she didn't answer. He texted, begged, apologized, promised to make it right. But Kemyra had already made up her mind. For the first time in years, she was putting herself first. That should have been the end of it. But Rashawn wasn't the type of man to accept rejection. And as the days went by, his behavior turned from desperate to dangerous. He started showing up at her salon uninvited, waiting outside in his car, watching as she came and went. When she blocked his number, he created new ones. He bombarded her DMs, flooded her with voice messages filled with rage and self-pity. One minute he was cursing her out, calling her ungrateful, reminding her that no man would love her like he did. The next, he was sobbing, swearing he would change, begging her to give him another chance. But Kemyra had heard it all before. And this time, she wasn't going back. She had no idea that her decision to walk away would seal her fate. February 14th, Valentine's Day. A day meant for love, for flowers and candlelit dinners, for whispered promises of forever. But for Kemyra Holloway, it would be the last day of her life. She had no idea what was waiting for her when she left home that morning. Her focus was on work, as it always was. Kai Luck's studio had become one of the most exclusive salons in the city, and today, a high-profile client was booked for a full glam session. Kemyra wasn't thinking about Rashawn. She wasn't thinking about heartbreak or betrayal. She had moved past it, at least, that's what she told herself. Security cameras captured her arrival. She pulled up in her white Mercedes, stepped out with her designer bag slung over her shoulder, and unlocked the front door. What she didn't see, what she couldn't see, was Rashawn, parked across the street, sitting in his car with the engine running, watching. He had been there for hours. He had been watching her Instagram stories the night before, dissecting every post, every comment, every glimpse into her life that no longer included him. He saw the expensive gifts from admirers, the flirty emojis under her pictures, the way she carried herself like she was finally free. And that was the problem. She was free. She had taken everything from him, his pride, his control, his place in her life. And in Rashawn's mind, if he couldn't have her, no one could. As soon as she stepped inside, Rashawn made his move. He crossed the street, pushed through the door before it locked behind her, and suddenly, it was just the two of them. Kemyra barely had time to react. One moment she was setting down her bag, preparing for the day ahead. The next, she turned to see him standing there, his eyes dark, his hands clenched into fists. "What the hell are you doing here?" Her voice was sharp, but there was something else beneath it, fear. Rashawn didn't answer right away. He just stared at her, his chest rising and falling with slow, measured breaths. Then he locked the door behind him. "You really think you can just walk away from me?" His voice was low, controlled, but there was an edge to it, a quiet fury simmering just beneath the surface. Kemyra's heart pounded. She had seen him like this before, back when their fights had gotten bad, back when his anger made the walls of their home feel like they were closing in. But this time, there were no cameras, no witnesses, no one to step in and pull him away. "Get out," she said firmly, refusing to let her voice shake. "We're done, Rashawn. You need to move on." He let out a bitter laugh. "Move on? You humiliated me, Kemyra. You made me look like a damn fool. You think I'm just gonna let that slide?" She shook her head, exasperated. "You did that to yourself. I gave you chance after chance, and you threw it all away. You ain't got nobody to blame but yourself." His face twisted with rage. "You think you're better than me now, huh? Because you got money? Because people kiss your ass on the internet?" He took a step closer. "You were nothing before me. That was it. The last straw." Kemyra had spent years letting him belittle her, gaslight her, make her feel like she was lucky to have him, when in reality, it had always been the other way around. She met his glare with one of her own. "And what are you without me?" She spat the words like venom. "A broke, washed up nobody. A leech? You needed me to eat, Rashawn. You needed me to make you look like a man. And now that I'm gone, you got nothing." The silence that followed was suffocating. For a moment, Rashawn just stood there, breathing hard, his nostrils flaring. Then, something in him snapped. Before Kemyra could react, he lunged. The moment Rashawn lunged, Kemyra fought. She screamed, shoved him back, tried to run, but she wasn't fast enough. He grabbed her by the hair, yanking her back so hard that she nearly lost her footing. Panic flooded her body, adrenaline kicking in as she thrashed against him, nails clawing at his arms, her voice rising in desperate, terrified cries. "Rashawn, stop. Please." But there was no reasoning with him. The man she once loved, the man she once believed in, was gone. In his place stood something monstrous, something fueled by rage, by rejection, by the unbearable thought of losing control over her. His eyes darted to the workstation, and in a flash, his hand closed around a pair of silver hair-cutting shears. The first stab came fast, piercing through the soft flesh of her side. A sharp gasp escaped her lips, her body jolting from the shock of it. She staggered, hands flying to the wound, warm blood seeping through her fingers. Then the second stab. And the third. Kemyra collapsed to the floor, her body writhing, her screams turning into raw, gurgling sobs. But Rashawn didn't stop. He couldn't. Each plunge of the shears was more vicious than the last. Her chest. Her neck. Her beautiful face, the face that had smiled so brightly on magazine covers and Instagram feeds, the face he had once traced with loving hands, was now a canvas of rage. 37 times. 37 deep, deliberate, merciless strikes. By the time it was over, Kemyra's body was still, her blood staining the white tile floor beneath her. Her once vibrant eyes were empty, staring into nothing. But Rashawn wasn't finished, not yet. He crouched beside her, his breath ragged, his hands trembling. In his mind, she wasn't gone. Not completely. She could still betray him. She could still tell the world what he had done. His eyes flicked to the curling iron still plugged in at her station. He grabbed it, flipped it open, and with a sickening calmness, pressed the burning plates against her tongue. The sizzle of flesh filled the silence. She would never speak against him again. But he wanted more. He wanted to make sure the world knew, she was his. Always his. With the tip of the shears, he carved a single word into her stomach. Mine. Then, just as quickly as he came, he was gone. The blood pooled around her body, soaking into the tile, spreading in thick, crimson rivers. Minutes passed. The salon remained eerily quiet, the hum of the fluorescent lights the only sound. Then, a knock at the door. A delivery driver, there to drop off hair products, peered through the glass, confused by the silence. He knocked again. No answer. But something inside made his stomach turn, something that told him something wasn't right. Slowly, he pushed open the door. And then, the smell. The coppery scent of fresh blood. And then, the sight. Kemyra, sprawled on the floor, lifeless. The box in his hand slipped, crashing to the floor. His breath caught in his throat. And then, the scream. A sound so raw, so filled with horror, that it sent chills down the spine of anyone who heard it. The plaza erupted in chaos. By the time authorities arrived, the horror had already spread. News cameras swarmed the area, reporters whispering words like brutal and vicious and unimaginable. And Rashawn Wilkerson? He had vanished. The news of Kemyra Holloway's murder spread like wildfire. Within hours, her name was trending across every social media platform. Fans, friends, and strangers alike flooded timelines with grief, disbelief, and rage. How could this happen? She was so young, so successful. She deserved better. But along with the heartbreak came the scrutiny. People dissected every post, every video, every interaction between Kemyra and Rashawn, searching for signs they had missed. The red flags that had been hidden in plain sight. And when the full details emerged, the violent attack, the mutilation, the possessive message carved into her skin, outrage exploded. Rashawn Wilkerson wasn't just a jealous ex. He was a monster. News outlets picked apart his past, revealing a trail of failed dreams and toxic behaviors. Ex-girlfriends came forward with chilling accounts of his controlling nature, his possessiveness, his temper. He had always been the type of man who believed that if he couldn't have you, no one could. And Kemyra? She had tried to leave. She had tried to move on. But in the end, his ego wouldn't allow it. Surveillance footage from Kai Luck's studio left no doubt about who was responsible. The grainy black and white images showed Rashawn outside the salon, waiting, watching. Then, the moment he forced his way inside. And finally, minutes later, the sight of him walking out, his clothes soaked in blood. There was no mystery here. No question of guilt. Phone records showed that in the days leading up to the murder, he had bombarded Kemyra with threats. If you think you can replace me, you got another thing coming. You belong to me. Always. You don't get to just walk away. She had told friends she was scared. That Rashawn had been acting strange. That he wouldn't leave her alone. But even then, even after everything, she never believed he would go this far. And as the public grieved, the debate began. Some blamed Kemyra for staying with Rashawn too long, for not cutting him off completely. She should have known better. She should have left sooner. But others pushed back, pointing to the systemic failures that allow abusive men to keep getting away with it. That allow them to threaten, manipulate, and control, until it's too late. Domestic violence experts spoke out, warning that Kemyra's case was tragically common. The final act of a man who believed he owned the woman he once loved. And for those who had followed her journey, from a self-made entrepreneur to a mother trying to rebuild her life, the reality was unbearable. Kemyra had everything. Beauty, talent, success. But in the end, none of it could save her from him. For 4 days, Rashawn Wilkerson disappeared without a trace. He ditched his phone, used a cousin's car, and slipped across state lines like a ghost. Meanwhile, Kemyra's murder became a national firestorm. News stations ran the story on repeat, her face plastered across every screen, radiant, full of life, a stark contrast to the horror of her final moments. Social media became a battleground. Fans, friends, and strangers combed through her old posts, dissecting every caption, every cryptic tweet. Messages that once seemed like everyday venting now read like desperate warnings. I can't keep doing this, she had written months before. Love shouldn't feel like survival. Her followers turned into digital detectives, tracking Rashawn's old connections, posting potential sightings, demanding that authorities do their job. The pressure. Police. Rashawn was holed up in a rundown motel in Birmingham, Alabama. A SWAT team was dispatched. They moved in swiftly, surrounding the building, weapons drawn. Rashawn tried to run. He slipped out the back, hoping to disappear into the night. But within seconds, officers were on him. He fought, kicking, screaming, but it was over. He was dragged to the ground, handcuffed, and thrown into the back of a police car. During his interrogation, he showed no regret. No guilt. He sneered at the detectives, calling Kemyra disloyal. He blamed her for his downfall. She tried to make me look weak, he spat. She thought she could replace me, like I was nothing. Even in the face of undeniable evidence, even after her blood was found on his clothes, he refused to accept responsibility. His trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming: surveillance footage, threatening messages, eyewitness testimony. The jury needed less than 2 hours. They convicted him on all counts: first-degree murder, unlawful imprisonment, aggravated assault. Then came the sentencing. Kemyra's mother, Sharonda, stood before the court, clutching a framed photo of her daughter and little Sinai. Her hands trembled as she spoke, her voice breaking under the weight of unimaginable grief. She still asks for her mama, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I have to tell a 3-year-old that her mother is never coming home. That she was stolen from us. And for what? Because a man couldn't take no for an answer. The judge, his face tight with barely restrained anger, turned to Rashawn. You are a coward, he told him. A man so consumed by his own fragile ego that he destroyed the very thing he claimed to love. You will never see freedom again. Then, the final blow, life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted. Some wept. Others sighed in relief. But for Kemyra's family, for those who had truly loved her, the verdict was little comfort. Nothing could bring her back. Her salon, Kai Lux Studio, was transformed into a memorial. Fans, clients, and loved ones flooded the storefront with flowers, candles, handwritten letters. They shared stories of her kindness, her talent, her infectious energy. But the shadow of her brutal death lingered, a wound that no amount of time could ever fully heal. Kemyra Holloway's name would never be forgotten. And neither would the lesson her tragedy left behind. Love should never cost you your life. This case is a haunting reminder that love, when laced with control and obsession, can turn deadly. Kemyra Holloway was a young woman who had it all: beauty, success, and ambition, but none of it could protect her from the man who refused to let her go. She was the embodiment of resilience, a self-made powerhouse who inspired millions. But even the strongest women can fall victim to the ones they love most. Her story forces an uncomfortable question: could she have been saved if she had left sooner? If she had seen the signs, if she had taken his threats more seriously, would she still be here? Or was she always destined to become another name in the growing list of women silenced by possessive, violent men? And what about society? What more can be done to protect women from partners who believe love is ownership? How many more warnings must be ignored before change happens? Kemyra's murder is more than just a true crime story, it's a lesson. A reminder that controlling love isn't love at all. That danger often wears the face of familiarity. And that sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who pose the greatest threat. If this story shocked you, like and subscribe for more cases that expose the darkest corners of love, lies, and betrayal. Because the more we talk about these stories, the more we can learn. And maybe, just maybe, we can stop the next one before it's too late.